Today we're talking about graphing quadratic functions in vertex form. It's also called intercept form, but we will talk to it and refer to it as vertex form. All right, yesterday we talked about it in what form? Standard form, okay? Today, vertex form. If you notice, it's written differently than it was yesterday. Okay, notice that there is a parenthesis, right? Now, in the parenthesis, you have x minus h. Let's pretend that that is x minus 3. Whenever you have, remember when we would factor and we set each of our factors equal to 0? You're going to do the same thing with these parentheses. Whatever is there in the parentheses, you set that equal to 0. And you will solve it. So I will add 3 to both sides, and I find that x equals 3. When you're writing your vertex, notice here it says h, comma, k. Notice in the equation you also have an h and a k. So if you look here, h is what? Negative. But when you write it into vertex form, it becomes positive. Okay, so basically, you don't have to do this work all the time. You just know that whatever's in parentheses, when it comes out, it's going to be the opposite. Okay, so for instance, if this had been a plus 3, then it would have become a negative 3. It's always going to be the opposite. Are we okay with that? If you notice here, k is k and k is k. So whatever number is being added at the end, it's just that number. It's not the opposite. The opposite is only the one in the parentheses because you would set those parentheses equal to 0 and solve. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Good? So opposite of what is in the parentheses, but whatever is not in the parentheses is just that number. Okay. Remember that your line of symmetry is always x equals whatever the x value of your vertex is. Okay? Your graph opens up if a is greater than 0, which means that a is positive. Your graph opens down if a is less than 0, which means that a is negative. Okay. Your size of your parabola is wider. And what I mean by wider is like this, is wider if a is a fraction. And the size of your parabola is narrower if a is a number greater than 1. Narrower meaning something like that. And it's just a normal graph, we'll say, if a equals 1. Okay, so just kind of your average parabola. Yes? Okay, good question. So negatives and positives tell you your direction, but then the number itself without negative or positive is telling you if it's wider or narrower. Okay, good question. Any other questions so far? So we're just going to start on the examples. Okay, so we are going to state the direction of our graph. We want to know our vertex, which is always an ordered pair, correct? You also want to know your line of symmetry, which will always be what? X equals, and whatever the x value of the vertex is. Okay? Then I want you to state if it's narrow, wide, or normal. And you also need to state the max or min. Can it be a max and a min? No, it's only going to be one or the other. Correct? All right. So, graph. What direction is your graph going to go? How do we know it's going down? Good, you're negative 1/4. Okay, who thinks they know what the vertex is? What is the x value of the vertex? -2. And another thing I want you to notice that x is right here with this number. That's telling you that that goes with the x part of the vertex. And if you need to, set up the equation. X plus 2 equals 0. We subtract 2, and we find that x equals -2. We're not, good point. All of them are going to be squared. That's the way it's set up. And if you look back here at our formula, it's squared. And if you have a parenthesis squared, you would set both of them equal to 0, and you'd still get the same answer, right? Because squared just means the same thing twice. Okay? So the x value of the vertex is -2, and what is the y value? It's just +5. It's whatever number is at the end, and you keep the sign with it, so it's 5. What is your line of symmetry? -2 is correct. Okay, let's go kind of graph this first. So we're going to go left 2, and then up 5. Make our point. My graph is going which way? Down. Now, the narrow wide thing. Basically, this is telling you if something is narrow or wide. Think of this as the slope. So from this point, my vertex, if I go down 1 and then right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and make a point, or down 1 and left 1, 2, 3, 4, make a point, see how it's making this graph wider? That is like the easiest way for you to figure out if it's narrower or wider. But it's wider if it's a fraction. Okay? And this is basically your slope. Okay? Your line of symmetry, remember that goes down through the center. And is that a maximum or minimum value? Maximum, because everything else is smaller. And do you remember what the maximum value is? 5. It's always the y value of the vertex, and if you look here, this is telling you where your maximum value is, and that is at 5 on the y-axis. So it's always your y value. And that is it. What? No. Hope, question. Uh-huh. Okay, so don't look at negative and positive. Just look at the number itself. The negative positive tells you direction, okay? Your A value. Are we good? Awesome. Okay, example 2. So again, I'm going to label everything we kind of want to know. We want to know our graph direction. We want to know our vertex, which is an ordered pair. Our line of symmetry, which will be x equals a number. We want to know if it's narrow, wide, or normal. And we want to know if it's a maximum or minimum. And we want to know what that value is. Okay, so in this one, if there isn't a number in front, what number is there? 1. A 1, okay? So, and that 1 is positive. Which way is my graph going? Up. Okay, my vertex. What is the x value of the vertex? Good, -4 is correct. What is being added at the end if nothing is there? 0. So it's -4, 0. What is my line of symmetry? -4. Okay, let's go to graph this. So we are going to go left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going up 0. So we just make a point there at -4, 0. So if this slope here in front, if it's 1, what is that as a slope? 1 over 1. And it's going up, so we'd go up 1, right 1, or up 1, right 1. And so this is just a normal slope. It's not narrower or wider, it's just kind of average. You'll see a narrow one will be, I mean, you could have made this a little wider if you wanted to, but a narrow one will just be a lot skinnier than this. Okay? And is this a maximum or minimum value? Minimum, because everything else is greater. And what is your minimum value? 0. It's at 0, right? So that minimum value is 0. Questions? No? All right, let's move on. Sorry about your graphs. I know they're kind of messed up on there. You have to draw one on example 3. Okay, again, so we're going to write out. We need to find our graph with direction, our vertex, line of symmetry, and we need to know wide, narrow, or normal, and max or min. So, which direction is our graph going? Up, and we know that because it is positive. Our vertex is going to be what? Good, -2, -3. Because the only thing that changes signs is what's in here. Whatever's out here, it stays that same number. Okay, what is your line of symmetry on here? Not -2. Thank you very much. X equals -2 is correct. So let's go to graph this. We go left 2, down 3, make our point. And then remember, we are thinking of this number as the slope. Okay? So that as slope is 5 over 1. So we're going up from here. So if you went up 5, right 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right 1, up 5, left 1. You can see that this graph is what? Yeah, good. It's narrow. And is it a max or a minimum value? Good, minimum, because everything else is greater. And what is my minimum value? -3. And that's always your y value of the vertex. Okay? Questions on example 3? Okay, example 4 is slightly different. If you notice, what is it missing? It's missing parentheses. Does anybody think they know what happens when there aren't any parentheses like that? But there's an x squared term? So, anybody think they know what the vertex is on this problem? No, but that's a really good guess. So we're always just looking at the x squared part to give you your x value. So you could rewrite this, but what value is with the x squared? Because the 3 is your a value. It's separate from the x squared. So what value is with the x squared? No, that would make it different. 0. So if you wanted to rewrite it to look like this, you could, but you notice that we know that x plus 0 is what? X plus 0 is x. And so they simplified this to just be, if you go x plus 0 is x, you just end up getting the x squared. So anytime you have the x squared and it doesn't have the parentheses with it, that means that your x value is 0. Okay, so on my vertex, the x value is 0. And the y value is what? And your the y value is always the number that is kind of by itself and not with the x. What direction is your graph going to go? Up. What is your line of symmetry?
X.
Thank you. X equals 0. Good. Good job. Okay. Without even drawing this one right now, what do you think it's going to be? Wide, narrow, or normal? Narrow, because remember this is talking about your slope and you're going to be going up 3, right 1. It's going to be a narrower type graph. And without drawing this, is this going to be a max or min value? Min, because everything else is going to be greater. And do you know what that minimum value is? -5. You guys are super smart. Okay, so 0, -5. 0 on the x, down 5 on the y. If we want to kind of do our slope from this point, we'd go up 1, 2, 3, right 1, and up 3, left 1. And then we can draw our parabola. And your line of symmetry is just going through the middle right there at 0. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to give you about 1 minute to do example 5 on your own. Do I have a volunteer of somebody that wants to come up and do the problem? I will talk through it while you do the work. Do I have a volunteer? Okay, Hope. Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
No pressure.
Okay, so the first thing Hope is writing is that the graph is going down. And how does Hope know that the graph is going down? There's a -1 in front, exactly. Okay, so next she's going to find her vertex. And she knows that the x value of the vertex is what? A +6. And why is it +6? It's going to be the opposite, right? And if you were to set it equal to 0, it'd be +6. Okay, and then the y is just the end of the value, which was -5. Her line of symmetry is x equals 6. Make sure you always write that as an equation. And there's a -1 in front. She's going to go graph this good. She's going right 6 and then down 5 to make her vertex. The slope on this one would be -1/1, so she's going down 1, right 1 to help give her her width of the graph. Since this is 1, would we say this is wide, narrow, or normal? Normal. Just a normal, exactly. Okay, and then is that a maximum or minimum value? Max, because everything else is smaller. And what is that max value? -5 is correct. Perfect. Do we have any questions on this? Yeah, give me your hand.